Your sister just bought a really nice house in the suburbs. When are you going to settle down, Lena? I sipped my cider, swallowed the familiar bitterness, and calmly replied, "Oh, I'm fine. I just didn't invite those people who always doubted me to see." Mom was stunned. Her face turned red as if I had just cursed at the ancestral altar. The whole table suddenly fell silent. I didn't need to look up to know everyone was looking at me. But I was used to it. I am Lena, 28 years old, living in Boulder, Colorado. My whole life has been a series of days living under the giant shadow of my perfect sister, Sabrina, 33 years old. The pride of the family, as my mother used to say. I'm not kidding. Ever since I was a 5-year-old ballet dancer, I've heard Sabrina was chosen as captain of the cheerleading squad, you know? I won second place in the state science competition, and my mother just smiled faintly. That's good, honey, but Sabrina just got a perfect score in macroeconomics. My father left when I was 4. Sabrina was 9, and from then on, my mother poured all her remaining faith in men into her. In her eyes, she was the one who would replace my father in taking care of the family. And me? I was just the second child. Okay to have, okay to not have. My mother canceled the only ballet recital I invited her to because it clashed with Sabrina's volleyball match. When I graduated from high school with honors, my mother didn't show up because she had to drive Sabrina to an internship interview. She waited outside the car for 3.5 hours without saying a word. Sabrina's mother paid for her college tuition, even though her grades were mediocre. I, on the other hand, went to college on a partial scholarship and with a near-perfect GPA, but still had to work 2 part-time jobs and take out student loans. My mother said, "Daughters will take care of their husband and children in the future, so there's no need to try so hard." When my sister graduated with an average degree and got a job as an office assistant at her mother's friend's law firm, we threw a big BBQ. And me? I graduated with honors in computer science, and all I got was a pre-printed card that said, "Proud of you, Mom." The only person who really sees me is cousin Amelia. After every party celebrating Sabrina, she would quietly come to me, hug me, and whisper, "You don't know what you're missing, but I do." You say that, but it doesn't ease the pain of seeing the whole family rejoice, like Sabrina just won a Pulitzer Prize just because she got an insurance policy. I moved out at 22 and cut off all personal contact with my family. What else is there to say? Every time I say something, my mother uses Sabrina as an example. "Oh, you got a raise? Sabrina was just promoted to department head." "You're on vacation? Sabrina's been so busy she hasn't had a day off in 6 months." I gradually became quiet. Every holiday I appeared like a shadow, answering yes, avoiding their pitying eyes, and quietly withdrawing. But I kept trying. I worked at a tech startup in Denver. I kept getting promoted. I invested wisely, saved every penny. I taught myself to code at 16 when Sabrina was busy leading the cheerleading squad to regional competitions. I went to college to study computer science, working part-time and living in a tiny apartment with 3 roommates. I lived so frugally that I brought homemade bento to the office every day. But I knew I was building something for myself, solid, silent, and lasting. Still, my mother called regularly every month, the conversation always repeating like an old song. "Mom, how are you?" Me, "Yes, still good. Work is fine." Mom, "Yeah, that's great. Sabrina just got a trip to Hawaii. I'm so proud." The peak was Thanksgiving 3 years ago. I had just been promoted to team leader, the youngest team leader in the company's history. Part of me really hoped that this time, my mom would be proud of me. So I headed back to her house in Fort Collins, with a bottle of good red wine in tow, thinking, maybe this time will be different. Sabrina was there too, along with her new boyfriend, not the old Richard, but someone whose name I couldn't even remember. Sitting at the table, Mom asked the usual question. Lena, how are you? I swallowed a mouthful of water to hide my confusion, then tried to stay calm. I was just promoted to team leader last week. Now I manage a team of 6 software engineers. Mom nodded as if I had just said it was going to rain today. Yeah, that's good, honey. Sabrina, tell us about your conference contract negotiations last week. And so the whole table revolved around Sabrina, again the wows, again the fake applause. I sat there, picking at the hard turkey, unable to swallow, trying not to let the tears fall in front of the family. Amelia quietly squeezed my hand under the table. That squeeze, though small, was the only thing that kept me from crying. After dinner, I was washing dishes in the kitchen, a way to avoid hearing any more Sabrina cheers, when Linda glided in, glass of wine in hand, a ready-to-teach-a-lesson smile on his face. Lena, is there a special man in your life? I just smiled, not looking up from the boiling pot. Not at the moment. I'm focusing on my career. She sipped her wine, then clicked her tongue. Don't wait too long, honey. Men don't like women who are too ambitious. Look at Sabrina. She has a boyfriend, is thinking about buying a house, and her career is still unstable. But men prefer women who are reasonable to women who are over-talented. I paused for a moment. I wanted to laugh, but just turned around and smiled faintly. I guess I'm not the type of man who feels threatened by ambitious women. She raised her eyebrows, about to say something more, but I turned back to continue washing the dishes as if the conversation was over. That night, as I was getting ready to leave, my mother hugged me at the door, a superficial hug, as if she was holding the shoulder of an acquaintance. It's good to see you, honey. You should come home more often. I'm busy, Mom, I replied, especially after my promotion. Mom paused for a beat, then smiled. The half-pitying, half-contemptuous smile I was familiar with. Oh, right. That little promotion. That's great, kid. Who knows? Maybe one day you'll be as successful as Sabrina. I stood still. Maybe my mother didn't notice, but that is saying it's self-esteem. No matter what I do, no matter how good I am, in her eyes I am still just a faulty version of my sister. That night, driving back to Denver, I made a silent but decisive decision. I'm done. No more trying to be accepted. No more hoping to be loved like Sabrina. I'm going to live for myself. And strangely enough, when I stopped waiting for love from my mother, things started to get better. The startup I worked on exploded. We raised 3 rounds of funding in just 14 months. I was promoted to product development manager, leading a team of nearly 30 people. Meanwhile, Sabrina kept jumping from job to job, from administrative assistant to lifestyle consultant to social media manager for a small spa. No one place lasted more than a year. But for my mother, every job change was a bold strategy to demonstrate the bravery of the new era. As for me, even though I topped the productivity rankings of female tech workers in the Western region, I only heard, yeah, it's okay. Last summer, Mom threw a BBQ to celebrate Sabrina's big news. I was going to not go, but Amelia sent a distress message. Please go away. If I have to listen to Aunt Linda asking me one more time why I don't have a boyfriend, I'm going to go crazy. I laughed. Okay. For the sake of family. I arrived and was immediately struck by the sight, as cheesy as a child's birthday party. Colorful balloons, congratulations Sabrina. Banners stretched across the porch, and a cake decorated in the shape of a small house with a white fence. My mother saw me and rushed over, grabbing my hand as if to pull me into the main show. Lena, you're here. This is wonderful. Sabrina has big news. Yeah. I'm nervous too, I replied, my eyes scanning the scene as if I were visiting a museum of live comedy. Wait a minute. Sabrina wants to announce herself to everyone, Mom said, her eyes shining as if she were about to perform a procession. I quietly grabbed a soda, walked along the row of folding chairs in the yard, and found Amelia huddled under the apple tree, looking as if she wanted to disappear from the world. Kill me, she muttered as I approached. My aunt just asked me if I was on Tinder. Mike said my biological clock was ticking. I sneered. Family reunions, where self-esteem goes to die. We stood there, watching as relatives arrived one by one, all eyes on Sabrina and her new boyfriend Chad, who looks like a worn-out replica of the unattractive fitness trainer. Sabrina never forgot to wear her familiar queen of the neighborhood smile, the kind that makes her smile like she's the reason the sun rises every morning. Finally, my mother tapped her glass with a fork. Attention everyone, Mom is very proud to announce, Sabrina has been pre-approval home loan. It's about to become property owner. The applause was as loud as if she had just been nominated for an Emmy. I had to turn away to keep from laughing. Aunt Linda wiped away tears. I swear because of the paper loan approval, but not buying a house. Then she continued, as if introducing a product on QVC. The house is in Lakeview Gardens, 4 bedrooms, finished basement. Sabrina will make a yoga studio there. Chad will make a mini bar. Amelia leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Don't you think this is a bit too much?" I nodded. Not just you. Uncle Alan approached, beer in hand, and asked, "Lena, are you still renting that apartment in downtown Denver?" I smiled. Yes, it's still there. He smiled and patted my shoulder as if he was encouraging a child to repeat 3rd grade. You will get to where your sister did. Not everyone succeeds that quickly. I took a sip of soda and turned away. If I stayed another 30 seconds, I knew I would ruin the party beyond repair. Later, while helping to clear the leftovers into the kitchen, I accidentally overheard a scary conversation between Mother and Sabrina. The deposit seems a little tight, Sabrina said. I might need a little more than what you gave me. Mother sighed, tired. Sabrina, I gave you $15,000. That's almost all of my retirement savings. I know, she said immediately, her voice as sweet as candy. But this house is fate. Chad loves it. We can get another credit card, no problem. I slipped out of the kitchen that day before they saw me eavesdropping. But what I heard played like a recording in my head for the next week. On the drive back to Denver, the numbers kept repeating themselves in my head. $15,000. The $15,000 her mother had given Sabrina. It wasn't a loan. It was a gift. Was retirement savings she'd been saving for decades, money she didn't have much of, money she'd saved to retire after nearly 3 decades as an administrative assistant at a small dental practice. And now she's giving it all to Sabrina, a career-changing person like she changes her nail polish, to buy a house she clearly can't afford. And the way she talks about opening another credit card, like she's talking about picking out more pizza toppings, sends a chill down my spine. Meanwhile, when I moved into my first apartment, not only did my mother not give me a penny, she also looked annoyed when I asked if I could leave a few boxes in her garage for a week. She once mumbled, "My garage is not a storage room, son." I was hurt then. But now, knowing that my mother could give Sabrina $15,000 without batting an eyelash, I feel nothing but anger. Not just because of bias, which I've endured all my life, but because Sabrina is brazenly taking advantage of her mother. My mom isn't rich. She still drives a 2008 Honda Civic, eats hard-boiled egg sandwiches every lunch to save money, and has never vacationed more than 1 state away. And Sabrina? Spent her mom's money on a yoga room with color-changing LED lights and a backyard pizza oven. Yeah, I saw the bill. The next morning, in a fit of rage, I did something that in retrospect was a little disturbing. I logged into credit report Sabrina's I work in fintech, and while this isn't exactly legal, I have the skills, and the right reasons, to care. The results left me speechless. 5 credit cards, almost maxed out, credit score at disaster level, late payment on car loan, just applied for 3 more lines of credit. All denied. I don't need to be a financial expert to realize she is drowning in debt and still tried to drag his mother down with him. I was going to tell her. I really was. I had the text ready several times, but then I remembered the look on her face whenever I said anything about Sabrina. Defensive, angry, like I was insulting a god. Mom wouldn't believe it. In her eyes, I was just a petty girl, jealous of her successful sister. No one in the family ever really saw me for who I was. So I kept quiet. I kept it to myself. But I started calling my mom every week, not because I needed anything, but because I wanted to check on her. However, the calls remained the same. Hi, honey. Sabrina just bought a beautiful new dining set. Oh, Sabrina is planning a huge Halloween party. How are you doing, Lena? Still at the same company? I chuckled every time my mom asked. The old company had been acquired for tens of millions of dollars just 10 months ago. And I was the CTO, not just being there, led the engineering team that built the acquisition's core product. My shares turned into a sum of money that most of my family could not imagine. I've been investing in crypto since I was 23, right at the height of the boom. I don't spend lavishly. I don't show off. I still drive my old Subaru, live in the same apartment in downtown Denver, bring lunch to work, wear outlet clothes, but my investment account keeps growing every month. About 8 months ago, I happened to learn from a coworker that their neighbors were looking to sell their house without a realtor. They needed to sell quickly and didn't want to let anyone else. I wasn't planning on buying a house. The apartment I was living in was fine, but out of curiosity, I went to see it. And I love, at first sight, the home is tucked away on a pine-lined street near Lyons, Colorado. Over 4,000 square feet. Floor-to-ceiling windows open to views of pine trees and a creek behind the home. High ceilings with exposed beams. Hardwood floors throughout. Kitchen that looks like it came straight out of a high-end interiors magazine with oversized island, custom cabinets, and gleaming stainless steel appliances. There is a private office, a mini gym, and a guest bedroom. The master bedroom has a bathtub right under the window, where I imagine soaking every morning watching the mist drift over the forest. A wooded courtyard wraps around the back of the house, with an outdoor fire pit and lounge chairs. Price? Not cheap, but I have cash. Not mortgage approved. There is real cash. I sent in my offer right away. 2 months later, I moved in. No reception, no banners, no party. Just me, Oscar, and the sound of the stream trickling on the back porch. The first night, I opened the bottle of wine I'd kept since my Series A startup. Sitting on the back patio, my hand gently stroking Oscar's head, I felt something I'd never felt before. Peaceful. No need for anyone's approval. No need for Mom's praise. No need for Sabrina to appreciate. Only I know. I did it. Alone. I don't tell anyone in the house. They didn't ask, so I didn't tell. When my mother called, I still answered, "Same as always, Mom," and then listened to her continue talking about Sabrina. Only Amelia knows. She helped me move, and as she stood in the middle of the kitchen with natural light streaming in, she almost burst into tears. "Lena, this... unbelievable. You did all this by yourself?" "Trust me," I smiled, leading her behind the house. I stood frozen when I saw the backyard, the stream, the wooden benches around the fire. My family would go crazy if they knew. "So they won't know," I said, pouring more wine. "What, not telling?" I shrugged. "I'm tired. I don't need their recognition anymore." Amelia nodded slowly. "I understand. But God, I want to see their faces when they find out." I laugh. "Maybe someday, but not today." Over the next few months, I live the life I choose. Planting a vegetable garden, joining a climbing group, working from an office overlooking the woods. Oscar lies at my feet every morning while I write technical reports. I don't need my mom to call and say, "I'm proud of you." I'm proud of myself. A fateful message arrived in early November. From Mom. In the family chat group. Sabrina and Chad have moved into their new home. They will be hosting Thanksgiving this year. I can't wait for everyone to see their beautiful home. I stared at the message for a long time. There was a part of me that wanted to silent, continued to live peacefully. But the other part, the part that had been ignored for so long, the part that had been suppressed after each comparison, after each pushing aside, awaken. That morning, I took Oscar for a walk around the grounds. The morning dew was still clinging to the pine branches, and the sunlight had not yet fully penetrated. I thought about what I was going to do. Part of me wants to stop, to keep things to myself, to enjoy the peaceful life I've built for myself, without causing any disturbance. But the other part, the part I've been holding back for years, is screaming. It's telling me I've had enough, that I've made it, and I can hold my head high, that I no longer owe them silence. I looked down at Oscar, who was looking up at me expectantly. "What do you think, Oscar?" I asked. "Is it time to stand up for yourself?" Oscar wagged his tail and barked. I took that as a have. I left enough food, water, and Oscar's favorite snack, then went back to my room. I changed into dark jeans, a light gray cashmere sweater, and the brown leather boots I'd given myself after the acquisition. In the mirror, I looked unremarkable, but different. No longer the little sister in the sale. I looked like a woman who knows who she is. I drove my old Subaru, which I had never upgraded, though I could do it, to the new neighborhood where Sabrina and Chad had moved. Each house here is eerily similar. Gray tiled roofs, off-white walls, perfectly manicured front yards, just like in the advertising photos. Everything is good, in a mass-produced way. I pulled over and walked to the door. Laughter and the clatter of dishes came from inside. I took a deep breath, not for courage, but for release. I didn't come this far to prove anything. I just needed to be there, to be myself. I rang the bell. The door opened. Vanessa, wearing an apron printed with the words, "Hostess with the mostest." "Lena, you're here," she exclaimed, giving me an awkward, formal hug. We'd only met 3 times before, and each time she'd hugged me like we'd grown up together. I smiled, handing her a box of premium tea and some tubes of artisanal honey I'd picked up on a weekend trip to the mountains of Estes Park. A small, thoughtful, understated gift. "Oh, thanks," Vanessa said, glancing at the label but not really paying attention. "Come on in. Everyone's here." Inside, Sabrina was giving tours as if she were filming an HGTV special. "And here's the kitchen. All the backsplash is imported Italian tile, y'all. I picked every piece myself. We're going to put a pool in the backyard next summer." My mother followed behind, full of pride, constantly contributing to the conversation. "The master bedroom is beautiful, isn't it? That shower is a new European style. Look at the kitchen counters, the best granite." I just smiled and nodded. Then I walked into the kitchen to help Vanessa set the table. She was pleasant, a little naive, and completely caught up in Sabrina's world without even realizing it. I had just placed the tray of meat pies on the table when Nora swooped in and pulled me to a corner of the living room. "I'm surprised you came," she said, her eyes sparkling. "Of course. How could I miss the chance to see this legendary house?" I chuckled, looking at Sabrina, who was still explaining in detail about kitchen cabinet hinges. Nora rolled her eyes. "Ever since I walked in here, I've been hearing our ceiling trim and our recessed lights. I'm about to roll under the table." I chuckled. "How long have you been here?" "Long enough to hear Aunt Linda ask 3 more times why she doesn't have kids, and once brag about her friend's daughter finding a husband on Bumble. She seems determined to inspire her at all costs." "She's always consistent," I nodded. Then she looked at me for a moment, tilting her head slightly. "You seem different today, like you're really enjoying this." I shrugged. "Let's just say I'm ready for anything." Before Nora could ask further, my mother approached, her face beaming as if she had just won a national interior design championship. "Lena, there you are," she said. "Isn't Sabrina's house beautiful? She's grown up, hasn't she?" I nodded slightly. "Pretty." He picked the paint color himself, Mom added proudly, as if it were some groundbreaking invention. And you should see the basement. It's turning into a home theater. Sounds great, Mom, I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral. I looked at my mother. It was the same face. It was the same bright eyes when she talked about my sister. My eyes never looked towards me. What about Mom? How have you been? I asked, tilting my head, changing the focus of the conversation. Mom waved her hand, almost not realizing the question was about her. He's been busy helping them settle in. You know, a new house is a lot of work, but it's worth it. I'm so proud of him. I nodded, without smiling this time. I'm not angry, not sad, just empty. Feels like I already know the answer, but still hope this time will be different. When everyone sat down at the table, Sabrina naturally sat at the head of the table, with Mom on her right and Chad, the boyfriend who never talked much, on his left. I was sandwiched between Nora and Aunt Linda, who immediately turned to me in her familiar meeting voice. Lena, do you have anyone special? Don't wait until the end of time. I just shrugged and smiled faintly. I'm focusing on my career, Auntie. My mother interrupted before I could take a bite of mashed potatoes. Lena has always been very independent. Not everyone is ready to settle down and build a life like Sabrina and Chad. Sabrina smiled like she had just won a Fulbright scholarship. Then she gently placed her hand on Chad's and turned to him. We are also thinking about starting a family next year. The house is spacious now, so we have plenty of space. Cheers erupted around the table. Glasses were clinked. Shoulders were slapped. My mother even wiped away tears, while Nora glared at the green beans as if she wanted to drown herself in them. I can't believe how much my little girl has grown, she choked, squeezing Sabrina's hand. A beautiful home, a good man, thinking about having a baby. You did everything right, Sabrina. Then my mother turned to me. And there, a familiar look. A look that was a mixture of pity, disappointment, and something like long-suppressed reproach. What about you, Lena, dear? When will you settle down? Don't you want a life like your sister's? The air suddenly became thick. Everyone at the table stopped chewing. Their eyes turned to me as if waiting to see. This time I will keep quiet, avoid or change the subject. Like every year I took a slow sip of water, letting them wait in a silence long enough for awkwardness to fill the room. Then I set the glass down on the table, my voice as calm as if I were talking about the weather. Oh, I'm fine. I just didn't invite anyone who might suspect me to come and see. There was a moment of silence. You could almost hear the knife cutting through the chicken from the other end of the table. Mom's fork fell on the plate. Aunt Linda gasped as if I had just announced myself as an alien. As for Sabrina, the smirk froze, as if someone had pressed the pause button on her face. What did you say? My mother finally managed to say. I'm fine, I repeated, continuing to pick vegetables from my plate as if this were just Wednesday lunch. 8 months ago. What do you mean? Mom asked, her eyes flashing with confusion and concern. I bought a house. I moved in. I built my own life. I just didn't feel the need to announce it to people who had no interest in my accomplishments. No one chews anymore. Sabrina, trying to regain his composure. Chad sat like a statue. The whole table was drawn to something they were unfamiliar with. Truth. Sabrina forced a polite smile. Come on, Lena. Buying a house is a big deal. It's a little weird to keep it a secret, isn't it? I turned to look her straight in the eye. Not really, because none of you ever asked. The sentence hit the table like a rock, hard enough to make someone feel crushed. My mother shifted in her chair, clearly unsure how to react. Sabrina smiled faintly, holding up her glass to cover the slight twitch at the corner of her mouth. So, she said after a moment of hesitation, what kind of house is it? A downtown apartment or something? I looked at her like a student trying to grade a teacher's paper. I could see she was trying to lower expectations first. Preemptive strike before being defeated. Classic Sabrina style. It's a private house, I replied softly, but clearly. It's actually bigger than this one. If it weren't for Nora sitting next to me, I might have laughed when I saw her jaw drop to the bread plate. Bigger? Aunt Debbie stammered. How much, Lena? I leaned back, comfortable as if chatting over a cocktail. Over 4,200 square feet, on over 3 acres of land, stream, backyard, and even an organic vegetable garden. I can hear the sound Chad swallow. My mother gasped, and for the first time since I'd entered the house today, she actually looked at me. Not just a passing glance look. Real. But honey, Mom said, her voice trailing off. Isn't that a little too much for someone living alone? And so what I had been familiar with since childhood appeared. Mom is trying to turn my success into a mistake again, as if my doing well could only be random or unwise. Not at all, I replied calmly. I mean, I don't have any mortgage, so I don't have any financial stress. The reaction occurs like a domino effect. Sabrina choked, almost spilling her glass of wine. My mother's eyes widened as if I had just said I had won the lottery. You paid cash for a house like that? Mom stammered, her voice almost trembling. Yeah, I shrugged, picking up a knife and cutting into the chicken as if discussing the dish. I don't see why I should take out a loan when I don't need it. Sabrina's face went from arrogant to ashen in a matter of seconds. Her eyes narrowed, her hands gripping her knife and fork as if she were trying to keep from screaming. I turned to look straight at her. What about you, Sabrina? How much of a deposit do you put down? Or borrow most of it? Sabrina gritted her teeth, her jaw clenched. Her eyes were full of fire, not from insult, but because for the first time, she no longer holds the upper hand. My mother quickly interjected, as if she could patch up the torn atmosphere. But Sabrina's house is really nice, Mom said, nodding her head as if hypnotizing herself. Great neighborhood, friendly neighbors, good schools. It's a smart investment. Sabrina nodded, smiling wryly. Yeah, investing is all about location. When we have kids, this will be a great place to raise them. Aunt Linda, who had never been so perceptive about situations, calmly picked up her salad, then suddenly turned to me. Wait, Lena, I really own house. No loan? Yes, I replied. Full payment upon signing the contract. All paperwork completed within 14 days. The eyes around the table changed. From shock to admiration, then to confusion. They were trying to understand why. The silent sister they always looked down on could do that. There was only one person whose expression did not change, Sabrina. She looked really angry, not because I hide, but because of the truth breaking the whole system she relied on to feel superior. I chuckled. People assume all sorts of things about people, especially when they never really ask. Mom tried to smile awkwardly, as if to pull everyone back to the cozy atmosphere. Oh, come on, Lena. It's not like our family ignores you. I raised my eyebrows and looked straight at her. Really? When was the last time you asked me about my job, finances, or future life? No one answered. Never, I said clearly. Because in everyone's eyes, only Sabrina is worth caring about, and I am just a supporting figure. Sabrina slammed her hand on the table. Bang! Making the knives and forks clink. Enough, Lena. We get it. You bought a house. Great. Congratulations. Now do you want me to light fireworks, hang banners, and throw roses to celebrate? I sat still, completely calm. But maybe you should review your finances before continuing pretend is a successful person. Sabrina narrowed her eyes, her lips twitching slightly. What do you mean? Her voice was full of menace. That is, I leaned forward, while you're acting like the perfect woman who has it all, you're actually drowning in debt, especially credit card debt. A lot of it. The whole table seemed to be pulled into a vacuum. Sabrina opened her mouth to say something, but I continued. Have you told your mother? That you can barely afford the mortgage? That you used 3 different credit cards just to buy furniture for this house? That you borrowed money from almost everyone in your family just to scrape together enough money for the down payment? Her face was red, no longer cold, only naked anger. I don't know what I'm saying. Don't you know? I interrupted. I work in fintech, Sabrina. I living data. Her credit score is below 580. She owes more than $180,000 on top of her mortgage. And if she misses another payment, there will be no one else to pick up the tab. My mother turned to look at Sabrina, her face as white as paper. Sabrina? Is that true? For the first time in her life, Sabrina was speechless. She just sat there, her hands clenched, her eyes avoiding everyone. I looked at my mother. How much did she borrow from Mom in total? Just 15,000 like at the barbecue, or more? My mother turned to look at me, her voice harsh. How do you know that? I heard, I said. The party to celebrate Sabrina's home loan approval, which was even bigger than my graduation with honors. For the first time in her life, my mother looked really embarrassed. Sabrina's face was red, seething as if she was burning from the inside. You have no right, she hissed through gritted teeth. You have no right to invade my personal finances like that. I face it straight, without hesitation. And you have no right to take advantage of your mother, I replied. Taking her retirement savings as a down payment on a house you know you own, can't afford. Silence filled the room, not a sound except for the ticking of the wall clock. My mother looked back and forth between her 2 children as if the world she had painstakingly crafted, where Sabrina was the perfect symbol of success, and I was just the quiet girl on the fringes, was coming to an end, cracked into pieces right before her eyes. How can you afford that house? Mom whispered, as if she could not believe what she was hearing. I took a deep breath. No more anger, just clarity. You worked hard. You got promoted 5 times in 6 years. You're now the CTO of the company. Your stock was worth over $1 million when the company was acquired. You've been investing since you were 23. You live below your means. You don't splurge to show off. And you didn't have to ask your mom for money to grow up. Sabrina jumped up from her chair, causing it to fall behind her. You think you're better than me? What do you think this exposure proves? That you won? I looked up, still sitting still, my hands resting lightly on the table. I don't think I won anything, Sabrina. I simply stopped playing a game that was rigged from the start. I scanned the faces around the table, familiars who had grown accustomed to only looking up when Sabrina spoke. Then I stopped at Mom. Over the years, I have watched people worship her every move, while I was seen as the independent child. That is, not worth caring about. It was as if I had to scream for people to know I existed. I stood up and put on my coat. The saddest thing, I said, is that you will never know what I have done, because you never ask. The mother was so focused on her golden daughter that she forgot that the other person was the one who was truly successful. Mom started crying, not the easy tears Sabrina got when she showed off something, but tears that I thought might be regret. The whole table remained silent. I walked out the door, but before I left, I turned back one last time. If you want to know about my life, I said, next time, really listen. Then I stepped out into the thin November cold, got into the same old car as last year, and drove back to the house twice the size I had just left. A house I bought myself with cash. No help from anyone. For the first time in my life, I no longer felt invisible. I felt invulnerable. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, I was sitting on the back patio with Oscar, watching the sunset turn the woods purple, when my phone vibrated. It was a text from Nora. My mom said Aunt Linda still talks about your knockout at dinner. You must be a family legend. I smiled and replied, How is your mother? Fine. She asked when she could come visit. Maybe I showed her some pictures. I burst out laughing. Anytime, tell her. And you and Uncle Alan too. But make it clear that the invitation doesn't include a select few relatives. Understood. The other side is still fighting. I'll tell you the whole drama when we meet. I looked up at the rustling treetops and felt relieved. Honestly, no regrets, exposed Sabrina. Not at all. It's time someone exposed that bubble of delusion. The phone rang again. This time it was Mom. Fifth call since that evening. I never picked up. Partly out of curiosity, partly out of not wanting to hurt myself any further. I pressed decline and placed the phone face down. 10 minutes later, a message arrived. Lena, please. I need to talk to you. Sabrina is having financial trouble, and I'm trying to make ends meet. Can you give her some advice? She's family, after all. I stared at the message. A familiar anger rose up again. But this time, it didn't burn me. It ended me from one last expectation. I typed each word, clearly and firmly. Let me be clear. After you told me you bought the house with cash, after you pointed out that I never acknowledged your accomplishments, the first thing you did was ask me to help Sabrina? Are you serious? The ellipsis appeared. Then it disappeared. Then it appeared again. Finally, Mom texted back. Don't be like that, Lena. Families are supposed to help each other. You've always been too independent, and Sabrina needs help. And that is the problem. My independence was seen as a burden. Her dependence is rewarded. I typed the last line, the answer I had kept inside for so long. Mom, I'm done. I'm no longer the forgotten one. And I'm not going to be used to fixing other people's mistakes. I'm not going to help Sabrina. And I'm not going to answer any more calls or messages about her. I hit send. Then I blocked my mom's number. Blocked Sabrina's number too. And Ethan's. I turned off the phone. Put it aside. Oscar walked over quietly and placed his head on my lap. I stroked him behind the ears. His fur was as soft as wool. It's just you and me, kid, I whispered. Oh, and Nora and her family. That makes us a family. I don't need my mother's approval anymore. No need for anyone's recognition. And sure enough, no need to burn yourself just to keep others warm. For the first time in my life, I was no longer invisible. I am Lena, independent, successful, strong. And that's enough.